beautiful people out there. How y'all doing today? That is fantastic. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Double Diesel Sports Podcast, where we talk everything National Football League in season, off season. It doesn't matter because it's football. I am your host, Double Diesel, and welcome to the show. Before we begin, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and share the video if you enjoy the content or know anyone who enjoys this content. This really helps get me out there, get my exposure up, boost it, get it out there to more people. So if you haven't done that already and you'd like to, please do. That would mean the world to me. Also, if you haven't already, go follow me on Twitter at DDS_pod. And also, if you haven't already, please go support me if you'd like on Patreon at patreon.com/Double Diesel Sports. You can get exclusive content such as my weekly picks as well as my draft content that I do in the off season. If you haven't and you want to, please go support those. The links to those would be in the description down below. But you don't have to. You don't have to do any of the things I just asked you to do. Just the fact that you took the time out of your day to watch me means the absolute world to me. So thank you very much for that. Let's get on with the show. Now, as promised from last week, we are now officially at the midway point of the season. Technically, there's now 18 weeks in an NFL season, and we just finished week 9, so we are officially past the midway point of the season. And as promised from last week, I will be doing today a little bit differently. Usually in weeks past, I've been doing recaps of some of the games, some of the more notable games. But this week, I want to do a midseason report card on all 32 teams heading in past the midway point of the season, just to talk about each team a little more in-depthly, give them a grade on how they've done up to this point in the season. Let's start off with the AFC Beast. This is the only division right now where all 4 teams are not only in the playoff hunt, but all 4 teams are over 500 at the midway point of the season. And at first, it's going to start off with the division leader, the 6-2 Buffalo Bills, and they're going to get an A grade. This is no surprise whatsoever. They were the heavy Super Bowl favorites coming into the year, and they've looked every bit as much as that and then some. They are still easily, in my eyes, the best team in football right now. And yes, they are being rivaled by Kansas City and the Philadelphia Eagles, who are still undefeated. But this Bills team, I think, is still the most complete team in the NFL. Great offense, great defense, superstars on both sides of the football. And speaking of superstars on both sides of the football, they're just now getting Tre'Davious White back from injury. So, yeah. For those of you who probably don't even realize, they've been playing defensively all year without their best corner. So they're going to get him back just in time. So this is going to be really exciting to see what this team can do moving forward. They are the force to be reckoned with, not just in the AFC, but in the entire league right now. So yeah, A grade for the Buffalo Bills after week 9. And then the surprise second place team in this division, the New York Jets, the 6-3 New York Jets, coming off a huge victory against the aforementioned Buffalo Bills, and they're going to get a grade of a B- on the year. So some people are going to look at that and think it might be a little low considering how this team has been performing, and especially considering the expectations that they've had coming into this year. But there are still some things that they need to clean up. Zach Wilson, I need to see it. He played really well against Buffalo last week, but I want to see it on a more consistent basis from him. If you're able to do that, then this team can be really dangerous offensively, especially considering they need somebody to step up in the absence of Breece Hall, who they're not going to have for the remainder of the year. But another reason why this team is so good right now is that defense. This defense is just an absolute shit-wrecking unit. Quinnen Williams has come into his all. His brother Quincy in the linebacking core has looked as good as advertised. And Sauce Gardner, I've said it before, I'll say it again. forget defensive rookie of the year. He looks like he's the best corner in football right now. He has been every bit as advertised. I actually think he's been better than what the New York Jets thought they were going to get when they drafted him 4th overall out of Cincinnati. I think they knew that he was going to be a really good corner for them right off the bat. But I don't think even the New York Jets or even the most optimistic Jets fans were anticipating him to be prime Darrelle Revis from year one. So he has been absolutely exceptional. Probably just one of the best players in football, period. At the moment, Sauce Gardner, he's been electric. And another rookie, their other first-round pick, Garrett Wilson, has been absolutely astounding for them. They drafted him, 10th overall at Ohio State. He's also been every bit as advertised for them, and he's really helped bail Zach Wilson out of certain situations. And he's going to be the reason why Zach Wilson, I think, develops more and gets more confidence playing as the year goes on. I think Garrett Wilson's going to play a big part of that. He has to. But yeah, B- for the New York Jets at the halfway point of the year. Second place currently, 3 games over 500. And if you would have said that at the beginning of the year, I'd have called you crazy. Another team, though, who had some good expectations coming into the year, but even then are still outperforming expectations in my eyes, are the Miami Dolphins, who are also 6-3 at the moment. And they actually get an A+ grade on the year for me. And the reason for that is because this offense has looked much better than even I thought it was going to look. I had serious questions about Tua Tagovailoa coming into the year, and I said that I didn't think you were going to have a Kansas City-style offense, this high-flying offense with Tua as your quarterback, considering he doesn't have a strong arm and he has not played well his first 2 years in the league. He's made me eat a pile of shit for it, man. He, despite the few games he's missed because of that scary injury he had, despite that, when he's played, he's been exceptional. He's looked like a legitimate top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Now, you can probably say a lot of that has to do with the guys he's throwing the football to, but you can't discredit him whatsoever. He's been incredibly accurate. Everyone was clowning Tyreek Hill for saying how accurate Tua was. Well, he's backing that up. He's been incredibly accurate, especially over the middle of the field. And he just looks comfortable. He looks like he's been running this offense since he was a child. And it's an offense that suits his skill set best. And now the playmakers around him definitely help. But he has been the driving force behind this. And it's been really fun to see this offense reach its full potential that I didn't even know was the full potential with Tua as their quarterback. But you also do have to talk about these weapons. Like, Jalen Waddle is incredible in his own right. He would be the best receiver on about, 3/4 of the teams in the National Football League, and he's their number 2 because there's this man that exists by the name of Tyreek Hill, who 9 games in is the only receiver over 1,000 yards. He's on pace to he's actually currently on pace to potentially be the only 2,000-yard receiver in history. At the moment, he's on that pace right now. He's got over 1,100 yards through 9 weeks. And he's been unbelievable. I mean, Tyreek Hill in a Mike McDaniel offense is like a dream come true. And also, you have to credit the defense. They haven't been as good as they were last year, but they've stepped up and made plays when they've needed to. But yeah, man, this Miami Dolphins team, A+ on the year. What a season for the Miami Dolphins. And then we get to the last team in this division, the 4th place New England Patriots. Not as optimistic of a season compared to the other 3 teams in this division, but they're going to get a C for me. They've been just sort of average. I've said it before, this feels like a team that's kind of stuck in purgatory at the moment. Defensively, they are exactly what you would expect out of a Bill Belichick defense. Matt Judon has been a game wrecker for them, a desperately needed game wrecker for them. They've had some young guys step up. They've had the Joneses step up. Marcus, Jack, Jonathan, they've all stepped up big time in the secondary for them. And offensively, they're fine at the moment. There's definitely a lot of meat left on the bones for them. I don't know what it is with the chemistry as far as Mac Jones and Matt Patricia from a play calling standpoint, but this offense just looks kind of stuck at times. Now they're going into a bye week, so they will have time to figure that out or try and figure that out. But it's nice to see guys like Ramondre Stevenson get the workload, and he's really been the one consistent thing about this offense. Ramondre Stevenson, he looks like, I've said it before in the past, where if he was given full-time reps and he was given the keys to be the full-time starter, he has the talent to be a top 5 back in this league, and I don't say that lightly. Now, this is a team that they're 5-4 right now, and they just look like an average football team. They're in the playoff hunt right now. They're only one spot out of the 7th seed at the moment, so they're right in the thick of it. So they absolutely can make a run, but just at the halfway point of the year, and this could change. I mean, we've seen it before with Belichick teams where they start out slow, and then the second half of the year, that's when they really start kicking into gear and they start looking hot. But as of right now, after 9 weeks, they just look like an average football team. So C grade for the New England Patriots. Now let's go to the AFC North, the AFC North, and we're going to start with the Baltimore Ravens coming off an impressive win over the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football. This was a team that throughout the early part of the season was very tough to gauge because they were just constantly up and down, and because there would be times where like the offense would look all there and they would be running like crazy over teams with Lamar, and then the defense would just not back them up, or they would be up late in games and then collapse. I mean, how many fourth quarter blown leads did this team have early in the season? They've seemed to have corrected some of that stuff, and the defensive problems they tried to correct by trading for Roquan Smith, and offensively, yeah, this team has looked inconsistent at times. B grade for them on the year at this point, because they are still a good football team. This is still a really good football team. They just had some consistency issues that they seemingly have worked out for the most part. And yeah, I'm also really excited to see what that Lamar Jackson contract towards the end of the year is going to look like. But yeah, like those problems that they had at the beginning of the year, they seem to have corrected, and we're going to see what this team can look like moving forward as they make a push to January. But they're going to have some serious competition as far as winning the division, though, because the Cincinnati Bengals will also get a B grade at this point from me. And this was a team that started off really, really slow. I think they started out the year 0-2. They just looked like they got hit by the Super Bowl hangover that hits a lot of teams. And it was not worrying that it was a fluke, but some rumblings of that they were like, okay, maybe this Bengals team isn't as good as we thought they were. But they've turned it around, and obviously they just came off a dominating performance over the Panthers, and Joe Mixon just went ape shit in that game, and they proved that they can be effective offensively even without Jamar Chase, who's going to be out for a couple more weeks. But even when Jamar Chase is in there, this team is lethal offensively, and those issues they had at the beginning of the year, they have since corrected, and they now look like they're back to the Cincinnati Bengals that we know this team can be. And so, B grade for them. This is my favorite to win this division. And, yeah, man, we're going to see what this team looks like going forward. But through 9 games, B grade. They've looked like a really good football team. And now we get to really the bottom dwellers of this division. First, the Cleveland Browns. C minus on the year so far for the Cleveland Browns. Again, another team that just feels like they're just trying to stay afloat until he who shall not be named returns. But yeah, this is a team that defensively they've underperformed like crazy. This is not what you expect out of a Cleveland Browns defense that has this kind of talent on it. They've just looked pedestrian a lot of the time. And offensively, it's really just Nick Chubb, sometimes Amari Cooper, and that's it. This is an offense that literally, figuratively, and literally runs through Nick Chubb and nothing else. And again, they're just trying to stay afloat until he who shall not be named returns. And they're doing their best, They're fighting. They're trying to stay alive. They've won some games in pretty convincing fashion, but they've also lost some games in humiliating ways. So, I don't know. This is a tough team to gauge at the moment. It's a team that's trying to compete right now, but a couple more weeks, and then we'll try and see what this team can be as far as making a push to the postseason. But through 9 weeks, just a C minus grade. They've just been below average at best right now. Not really anything to write home about. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers, first D on the year for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is ironic because their D, the Steelers' D, has been next to non-existent ever since TJ Watt got hurt. Now he should be coming back, I think this week if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully. He was supposed to come back a couple weeks ago against Philadelphia, but then there was some whole thing there. So he should be back this week. But the rest of the Steelers team, this is just not a good team. This is just not a good football team. And Mike Tomlin's on pace to having his first losing season as a head coach in the National Football League, which is crazy because he's been the head coach of this team since, 2006? So the fact that this is going to be his first losing season as a head coach is going to be incredible. Now, there's still a whole half of football left to be played this year, but right now it looks like it's going to be that because, like I said, this is not a good football team. Kenny Pickett, God bless him, he's doing his best, but a rookie quarterback can only do so much with the talent he has, with an offensive line that's not very good, and Najee Harris basically getting demolished every time he gets a carry, and receivers who are kind of underperforming this year, and they just traded away one of those underperforming receivers in Chase Claypool. And I already talked about the defense slightly, is that it's a defense that, unless they have TJ Watt, just looks pedestrian at best and anemic at worst. So, yeah, man, we're going to see if TJ Watt coming back gives this defense or this team in general a spark. We will see, but right now this is just not a good football team whatsoever. So D grade on the year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now let's go to the AFC South. This is a division that for many years is a division that you look at and you're just like, you kind of forget exists at times. And no real difference as far as that goes this year. First off, the first place team, Tennessee Titans, they're only getting a C+ on the year. Not to say that this is this is not a bad football team whatsoever. I still love Mike Vrabel as a head coach. This is not a bad football team whatsoever. But this is a team that just feels there. Now, they did come off a very impressive performance against the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. But this is still a team that no one's really afraid of because they know offensively that it's Derrick Henry and nothing else. They don't have any receivers. They don't have a quarterback at the moment. I mean, they have Malik Willis in there, but he's as raw as can be. He's nowhere near ready to play. And unless Ryan Tannehill comes back, it doesn't look like Uh, it looks like that Malik Willis might be the guy for the remainder of the season, just so they can give him his lumps and see what they have in him moving forward. But yeah, defensively they play valiantly though. They play valiantly throughout a lot of games, especially in that game against Kansas City. I think they played, over 100 snaps defensively, and they fought tooth and nail to the very end. That's what you're going to get out of a Mike Vrabel coach team. It's still a very tough team, a very good team. Not a team you're necessarily afraid of, but also still a team that you look at and you're just like, oh, God, we got to play them this week because you know it's going to be a fight. But as far as this year, yeah, they're going to win their division in my eyes, but it's still not a team that you're afraid of. And just in general, it's just sort of been up and down, and they've been above average a lot for most of it. So yeah, C+ for the Tennessee Titans. And then miraculously, the second place team is the 3-5-1 Indianapolis Colts. And despite the fact that they have they're only 2 games below 500, despite the fact that they're second in this division, this is going to be my first F grade that I give out in this video. Because this team, what the fuck happened to this team? A team that looked like it was going to be a not lockdown AFC South winner, but a team that could potentially make noise come the postseason because of how they went towards the second half of last year and the talent they have with Jonathan Taylor having a breakout year and that defense maybe overperforming from last year. They can maybe do the same even though they don't have Matt Eberflus anymore. But yeah, this team is just falling off a cliff. They tried the Matt Ryan experience and that was a disaster. They benched him for Sam Ehlinger, who's actually somehow been worse. You can't blame Ehlinger. He's a second-year quarterback who's never started an NFL game before 2 weeks ago. But he looks terrible. They fired Frank Reich. And yeah, I want to talk about this because it's been the talk of the town the past few days. They fired Frank Reich. And that, to me, was the true indicator of, yep, this team is looking to tank. I mean, you kind of got that inkling after they benched Matt Ryan for Ehlinger, because I was like, there's no way that was a Frank Reich decision. That had to have been a decision from the owner, Jim Irsay. So you kind of got the inkling from that, but the firing of Frank Reich, which was a huge shock to me, but the firing of Frank Reich confirmed in my eyes, yep, this team is in full tank mode. And they're going to try and get into the sweepstakes for one of those quarterbacks, whether it be Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud or Will Levis or whoever, maybe a Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee, potentially. I think I said that right, Hendon Hooker, right? Yeah. They're going to try and get into the mix for one of those guys in the draft next year. And then later that day, it was later that day, right? Yeah, it was later that day. News drops that they hired not an internal coach to be their interim head coach. They hired Jeff Saturday, former All-Pro center for them many years back during the Peyton Manning era, and current ESPN analyst who has zero coaching experience in the NFL. And they hired him to be their interim head coach. If that doesn't scream, we're tanking, I don't know what does. They're saying we're tanking without deliberately saying we're tanking. Like, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. But I also don't blame Jim Irsay for going this route because he's making sure his team loses and gets a high enough slot at draft position at any cost necessary. Because I think he saw, because we've seen over the past 5 years, like, you talk about a team that has been absolutely demolished by the retirement of a quarterback. I've never seen a team get completely demolished as far as momentum and culture at the drop of a hat. Not culture, but just like as an overall like good energy around the team just get completely taken away at the drop of a hat when their quarterback retires. Like the shock retirement of Andrew Luck, I think has still highly affected this team because they've not had a stable answer at that position since he's retired. And they went through the Jacoby Brissett route. They had Brian Hoyer for a couple games. They obviously brought Phillip Rivers over from the Chargers for 1 year. Then he retired. They tried Carson Wentz out, thinking maybe he could be a long-term answer, reuniting him with Frank Reich. That busted. And then they tried trading for Matt Ryan, and that's been a disaster. And I think Jim Irsay was just sick and tired of this QB roulette that Ballard, the GM, has been playing for the past, 4 years now. So I think that they were sick and tired. He was sick and tired of that, and he's like, screw it. We're not going to do this anymore. We're going to draft a quarterback in the first round, and we're going to build around him because he was here. He was a part of the whole suck for luck thing back in 2011, where he saw what getting a quarterback high in the draft and what that can do, how much positivity that can bring to your team if he's developed correctly. And you just get a new sense of hope by bringing in a young rookie quarterback and not bringing in one of these old veterans who may or may not work out for you. So I think it's good process by him to try and get as high of a draft pick as possible. And yeah, the Jeff Saturday hiring has been an absolute joke. It's a joke. He might be good. We don't know. We've seen crazier shit happen. He might actually be a good head coach. We don't know. But yeah, it's on paper, it's a joke of a hiring, and this team is sounding the alarms. Yeah, that's really all to say about the Indianapolis Colts. I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't at least talk about that. I know I went off a little tangent there about it, but it's just such a like this Colts season has just gone from hopes to making the postseason and making noise in the postseason to this is without a doubt the worst team in football right now. And it's just weird to say, man. It's weird to see. It's also kind of hilarious, but you understand from why Jim Irsay is doing what he's doing. But anyway, back to the grades. If you haven't figured it out, yes, I did put an F for this team. I don't know if I said that already. If I haven't, and yes, this is an F season for the Indianapolis Colts. But the third place team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're going to get a C+ on the year. They just came off a huge win against the Raiders. And the Jaguars are a team that a lot of people said coming into the year were the shrug emoji team because the Urban Meyer error, that's ERROR, was such an unmitigated disaster that we had no idea what this team was going to look like. And yeah, they're 3-6, but they look pretty good, man. They have some talent. This past Sunday, Trevor Lawrence played his first complete game in the NFL. And this team has some pieces to work with. And now they're not going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're that good. But this team definitely has overperformed. They've outperformed the expectations that I and many had for them coming into the year. And they've been, in my eyes, an above-average football team. So, yeah, C+ for the Jaguars. A lot of that has to do with outperforming their expectations. But a lot of it is, hey, man, even though they have 6 losses on the year, they still look pretty good at times, man. So, yeah, C+ for the Jaguars. And then the final team, the Houston Texans, unsurprisingly, are going to get an F. This is one of the worst, if not the worst football team in the NFL right now. Rivaling the Indianapolis Colts for that honor. There's nothing really to say. This team we knew was going to be a bottom feeder coming into this league. coming into the league year, and they've been exactly that. And yeah, Davis Mills is clearly not the guy. They do have some pieces. They do have Dameon Pierce, who looks like he can be a beast moving forward for them. And yeah, that's really it. There's nothing really much to say about this team. They're going to be in the Bryce Young, CJ Stroud conversation for sure. But yeah, that's really all you can say about the Houston Texans right now. And then finally, for the AFC West. This was a division that has turned into what everyone, basically, the AFC East has turned into what everyone thought the AFC West was going to be at the start of the year. This division has had so much expectation. This was viewed as the bloodbath division, that everyone was just going to be killing each other, and it was a coin flip between all four of who was going to win this division. And it's just sort of been the same old in a lot of ways. We're going to start with the Kansas City Chiefs, who unsurprisingly get an A on the year. They've been the Chiefs that we know and love them to be. Even without Tyreek Hill, we were really thinking of what was this team going to look like without Tyreek Hill? Was it going to be impacted that much? And they have been impacted slightly. They're not as explosive as they were with Tyreek Hill, but they're still explosive offensively. Travis Kelce is still incredible. And in recent weeks, it seems like they're starting to finally get Juju Smith-Schuster more involved into the offense. And yeah, man, they just traded for Kadarius Toney. It's going to be interesting to see how they utilize him. MVS has made some plays for them. Jerick McKinnon has been really good for them in plays where he's in the game. And yeah, they just look like the Kansas City Chiefs of old, which is a top 3, if not top 2 team in football that's going to make a lot of noise and be in the consideration for making a Super Bowl run. So no surprise there whatsoever. But what is a surprise are the rest of these teams. And we're going to start with the Chargers, who are going to get a C. They just look average. And it sucks to say, I am really debating if Brandon Staley is even a good coach, honestly, because I mean that's a theme for the rest of these teams in this division, but this team especially is a team that should be better than what they look on paper. They have the quarterback, they have the receiving talent, they have the running back, they have the pieces on defense. I mean, it's a defense that has Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, and Derwin James. What more could you ask for on a defense? And they just sort of, like Chargers teams of past, just been unlucky. They've gotten hit by the injury bug to a lot of key pieces, and they just haven't been able to stay healthy, and it's come back and bit them in the ass a lot of times. And yeah, man, they just look like an average football team at the moment, which sucks because this team on paper shouldn't. I know it's the theme for the rest of these teams in this division, but especially this team. So yeah, they're going to get a C. They've been fine. I do think they're going to make a push to the playoffs, or at least compete for a playoff spot at least. But yeah, that's really it. They just look average at the moment at the halfway point. And then the Denver Broncos, they're coming off a bye, and their last game they played was against Jacksonville in London, where they seemingly got some stuff corrected. But I don't think that that changes a little bit. It took what was for sure an F grade and upgraded it to a D-. But I don't think that saved their year, mainly because this still is a team that has a lot of problems. This is an offense that has underperformed significantly. Play calling has not been particularly good. Russ has not been particularly good. And one victory against the Jaguars in London, I think that kept their season afloat, I still need to see it on a more consistent basis. And even in that game, through the first couple quarters of that game, they still did not look really good offensively at all. So yeah, this team has a lot of problems. Thank God for that defense. Thank God for that Broncos defense. What's the defensive coordinator's name? Oh gosh, it's slipping me. Ajero Evero, I think, is the name of the defense coordinator. Ajero Evero. He's done a phenomenal job with that Broncos defense. And yeah, they're the reason why this team is still afloat. Because without them, this team would have been in the dumpster with the bottom feeders of the league, which is not what you want to hear, considering all they gave up for Russell Wilson and the $42 million a year they're paying to Russell Wilson. And yeah, this team has just been not the definition of a disappointment, but they've definitely underperformed significantly. When you just look at the talent this team has, especially offensively, that they've looked this bad is sad. But like I said, that win against Jacksonville did up their grade from what was a surefire F to a D-. But one team that did not avoid the dreaded F grade is the Las Vegas Raiders. What the fuck is going on with this team? This team... Talk about a team that has been just the complete opposite of expectations. Like, this was a team that, for a lot of people, was, again, a legitimate team that could have rivaled to compete for an AFC West title, and they've been everything but. This is legitimately one of the worst teams in the NFL at the moment. Derek Carr has looked worse. I mean, Derek Carr he's been an average quarterback in my eyes throughout his career, and he's looked even worse than that. Now, thank God Davante Adams still looks like Davante Adams, and because he's really been the only lone bright spot. Hunter Renfro's dealt with injuries. Darren Waller's still out. Josh Jacobs has been okay. He's really been the only other consistent player offensively for them outside of Davante Adams. And their defense, everyone on that defense is shit unless their name is Max Crosby. Other than that defense is fucking horrendous, man. And they just cut Jonathan Abram just yesterday. Thank God for them, because he's been a liability for them ever since they drafted him in the first round back in 2019. So this team just is a terrible, terrible football team. And with that loss to Jacksonville when they blew another 17-point lead, I'm shocked that Josh McDaniels did not get Lane Kiffin and get fired on the tarmac. Leaving that stadium, I'm shocked that didn't happen. I thought for sure it was going to happen. Now they do play the Colts this week. That I said is clear and obvious that they are openly tanking. And if the Raiders somehow find a way to lose to the Colts, then that is a surefire guarantee Josh McDaniels is not going to continue being the head coach of this team after that. If they lose to the Colts, that's going to be it. And yeah, man, this Raiders team that has so much expectations, and they've become one of the worst teams in the NFL. Easy F grade for them. They've been absolutely horrendous. But now let's go on to the NFC now. We're moving on to the NFC, and we're going to start off with the NFC East. And we're going to start out with the only undefeated team left in the NFL, and that is the 8-0 Philadelphia Eagles. They get an A+++ on the year. They have been absolutely exceptional. I said earlier in the video that the Buffalo Bills were the most complete team in the NFL. Well, if the Bills are 1A, then the Eagles, excuse me, my brain broke for a second. But the Bills are 1A as far as most complete roster in the NFL, then the Eagles are 1B. Because they are, I've said it before, I've sung Howie Roseman's praises before. He has done a master job at building this team and constructing this team to be a legitimate contender. Nick Sirianni has been a great head coaching hire. Jalen Hurts has morphed into Josh Allen 2.0, it feels like. A.J. Brown looks like he could be an MVP candidate the way he's been playing. He won't win the award, but he's been playing out of his mind. Devonta Smith has emerged as basically wide receiver 1A. That defense has been really good for them. The acquisitions they made in the offseason has been incredible. This is rivaling the Bills and the Chiefs to being the best team in football right now. And if they're not the hands down favorite to come out of the NFC as the representative for the NFC in the Super Bowl, then I don't know who would be. Though there is one team that could potentially rival them in that regard, and that is their division rival, the Dallas Cowboys, who also get an A on the year. They have been incredible as well. They've played well, even when Dak wasn't in the game, wasn't playing for those many weeks when we had Cooper Rush in there. But this team has morphed into a legit Super Bowl contender, and a lot of it has to do with their defense. Their defense has been a shit-wrecking unit. Micah Parsons is, in my eyes, the defensive player of the year, just based on impact alone, because he has... This might sound crazy, this might sound hot-takey, but in my opinion, Micah Parsons is the closest thing to Lawrence Taylor that we have seen since Lawrence Taylor. He's just one of those rare guys that, especially as a linebacker, can just take over a game whenever he feels like it. And he has been the catalyst of what has been one of the best defenses in the NFL. And the offense has done their job as well. Dak has come back. He's played well. Tony Pollard is getting more snaps with Zeke being injured. I've been saying this for years, and I will continue saying it until it happens. Tony Pollard needs to be the number one back on this team, not Ezekiel Elliott. So, yeah, this Cowboys team looks like it can be really dangerous come January. And the possibility of an Eagles-Cowboys NFC title game is legit. And that's going to be really, really fun to think about. Another team that is had like a really fun season are the New York Football Giants. I'm going to give them a B+ on the year, because this is, talk about a team that's overperformed like hell. This is a team that nobody had any expectations for. And yet here they are, and they are currently 6-2. And it's a team that I think even the most optimistic of Giants fans were not expecting this team to look like this at the midway point of the year. Brian Daboll, he's on point. If they end up, even if the Giants don't make the playoffs, I could see a world where Brian Daboll gets the head coach of the year candidate, or coach of the year award, because he's done a phenomenal job with this team. He's took a team that's been dead in the water, that seemed like it had the soul ripped out of him from Joe Judge, and Brian Daboll has come in and just brought a new flair, a new fire, a new feeling around this team where it feels like they can be true world beaters, and they can be really as good as, even if they don't look that good on paper, they still find ways to win football games. And a lot of that has to do with Saquon finally staying healthy. The offense, they're not that good offensively, but they've been able to make plays when they needed to. Defensively, they've also made plays when they needed to. This is a team that is the definition of overperforming your expectations, and it's paid off huge for them. B+ for them. They've been phenomenal this year, especially considering the expectations they had. And then at the bottom are, in fact, the Washington Commanders. They're going to get a D+ on the year, mainly just because this team just kind of feels stuck. They were able to get some kind of momentum with Taylor Heineke coming back into the offense with Carson Wentz being injured. and they were able to get a couple wins during that time. So that was good momentum for them. Also, as a reminder that Terry McLaurin is, in fact, a him. But the rest of this team, it felt like they were trying to get some going and then trying to get a good enough record. And when Chase Young eventually came back, but yeah, they had a devastating loss to Minnesota last week, and they just sort of just went back to what they were before as far as a feel goes, and that's just a team stuck in purgatory, not really going anywhere. So yeah, a D plus for the Washington Commanders. Just sort of a meh season for them. And then the NFC North. We're going to start out with the 7-1 Minnesota Vikings. They're going to get an A- this year. Their one loss has come to the Philadelphia Eagles, which no shame in that, even though they did get steamrolled by the Eagles. But there's no shame in that. The Eagles are the Eagles this year. But other than that, they've looked pretty damn good, man. Offensively, they've made a lot of plays when they've needed to. And defensively, they've stepped up at times. They're not this great defense still, but they've still made plays when they've needed to. Justin Jefferson is still, in my eyes, the best wide receiver in football. Though Tyreek Hill is making a case this year, legitimately. But, however, the reason I'm giving him an A- and not a full-on A is maybe this... It feels like at the moment, even though they're 7-1, they're probably the least feared 7-1 team ever. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Kirk Cousins is still, in fact, their quarterback. And they know that once you get into a primetime game and he has to play under the lights, that he's going to crawl into a fetal position and die. So that's a lot of the reason why no one really fears the Vikings, despite the fact that they are only 7-1. But it doesn't take away from the fact that this is still a good football team, and the NFC North at the moment is their division to lose. And I don't see any of these teams really in this division really making a run to make sure that doesn't happen, unless just something batshit crazy happens. But I can confidently say one team that definitely will not be in that mix, which has been in that mix in years past, which is weird to say that they're not in this mix, but like, just even thinking about this team breaks my brain. It's the Green Bay Packers. Without a shadow of a doubt, they get an F on the year. I mean, what is there to say about this Packers team that hasn't already been said? I mean, they're incompetently run in the front office. They're a team that doesn't give a shit from the GM, Brian Gutekunst. Acts like he doesn't give a shit, doesn't try and make trades, doesn't try to sign free agents, doesn't really draft well, doesn't take priority in things that you need to take priority in the modern NFL, wide receiver. And your $50 million quarterback that you just paid this huge contract to isn't playing like the back-to-back MVP that you thought you were getting. You have no wide receivers. Your two best skill position players are your running backs, even though despite that knowledge, you still never run the football. And I get it. Aaron Jones is your best player, and you try and get him involved in the receiving game because, like I said, you don't like running the football. But when Aaron Jones, your running back, is your best wide receiver, that's a problem. Defensively, they've been terrible at times. They've been good at some times because on paper they're still a good defense, but in reality they're not that good whatsoever. Quay Walker looks like the biggest bust in the draft so far. I mean, I laughed at this team when they drafted him 22nd overall, and he's been even worse than what I thought he'd be. So, yeah, man, this Packers team is just dead in the water. They are FUCKED fucked. And yeah, man, they are just dead in the water, and they're not going anywhere. Not with this coaching staff, not with this general manager, not with this president and Mark Murphy. They're done. Season's basically over. Even though they're second place in this division, it feels like the season's over, especially considering the Chicago Bears have seemingly figured some shit out offensively. And the Bears are going to get a C on the year so far, and it would have been a D, but the past 3 or 4 weeks, they've seemingly built an offense that best suits the ability of Justin Fields, and he looks like a superstar in the making. You know, Justin Fields, we had a lot of expectations of him coming out of Ohio State, and didn't have the greatest rookie year by any means, and he looked bad for the first few weeks of the season, and it looked like this team was once again one of the worst teams in the NFL, but over the past few weeks, they've designed an offense that best suits his ability, and he looks like a stud. They traded for Chase Claypool, and yeah, man, he's been playing out of his mind these past few weeks. He had, I think, in the game against Miami, a game that they almost beat the Miami Dolphins, by the way, and a lot of that has to do with his 178 yards rushing as a quarterback, which is absolutely insane. I couldn't believe it when I saw that stat line. And he's been incredible these past few weeks. And now all of a sudden, this Bears team has some sort of momentum. Now, I don't think they're going to make the postseason, potentially. Maybe, considering how weak the NFC is this year. But, I mean, if they do fuck around and make the playoffs, then, hey, a great job. But even if they don't, you definitely have the confidence going into next year that, hey, Justin Fields is definitely the guy. So, C grade on the year for the Bears. They've been impressive these last few weeks for sure. You can't say the same thing, though, about the Detroit Lions, who are going to get a D+. And I want to like this team. I do. And I do like this team. I like Dan Campbell still. I do like some of the players they have there as well. But at some point, the wins just got to start coming. At some point, you just got to get something in the W column. And they did come out a huge win against Green Bay. But the problem is they haven't been able to have a consistent game on both sides of the football. At the beginning of the year, it was their offense that was lighting everyone up, and there was their defense that was not only bad, it was historically bad. And then even in the win against Green Bay, like, their defense showed up and showed out. Now, how much of that was the defense making adjustments and Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, making some adjustments to their defensive scheme, and how much of that was just the ineptitude of the Green Bay Packers offensively, we don't know. But the defense showed up, and then the offense couldn't get anything together, and trading away TJ Hawkinson was a head-scratching move and something that doesn't entirely make sense to me. But yeah, it's a team that, like, I can't really give more than a D+ to a 2-6 team, even though I still like the team. It's just, at some point, you got to figure out ways to close out these games. And then we go to the NFC South. We have to talk about this division. Unfortunately, we do, and it starts with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who lead this division at 4-5. This is another team that's just like, it's not a good football team, especially offensively. Tom Brady has finally looked like the 45-year-old quarterback that he is. For a lot of times he's looked like the 40-year-old quarterback we know he is. And defensively, they've been inconsistent. I mean, Devin White has basically become the laughingstock of a lot of people, especially after that Baltimore game last Thursday night or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, this team just feels stuck. I think they're good enough to win their division, but not much after that, because this team just doesn't have a lot going for it right now. They just can't seem to get anything together consistently. So C- on the year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then the Atlanta Falcons, they're going to get a C, mainly because I like the job that Arthur Smith has done. He's made this team competitive, despite the fact that on paper this team should not be competitive in any way, shape, or form. But he's made this team competitive. Now, it's still frustrating to watch how little they use Kyle Pitts. That's pissing me off slightly, but I think it's going to take time for them to figure out how to use someone like him, because he's just too great of a talent for them not to find a way to get him the football. But yeah, other aspects of this team has really stepped up. I mean, Marcus Mariota, what you see is what you get. But Tyler Algier, the rookie running back out of BYU, he's stepped up big time in the absence of Cordarrelle Patterson. Omalide Zaccheaus has been pretty good for them for the most part. Damiere Byrd, a journeyman speedster, has made some plays for them as well. And yeah, man, as another team that has sort of outperformed their expectations significantly. And yeah, man, they're going to get a C grade on the year halfway through. And the New Orleans Saints are actually going to get a C- from me. They've just been the definition, they have been the definition of a team stuck in purgatory, where it just feels like they have pieces, but they're not going anywhere. And they've been below average at best. Now, the offense has performed fine under Andy Dalton, but Michael Thomas is once again injured. I think he's out for the rest of the year, if I'm not mistaken. Once again. And defensively, they're just bleh. Offensively, they're just bleh. That's just the whole aura about this team is just bleh at the moment. They're below average at best, and that's what I'm grading them as. I'm grading them as below average, so C- for them. And then the Carolina Panthers at a D on the year. This would have been worse had it not been for the fun couple weeks that we had from their victory against Tampa and their almost should have been victory against Atlanta last week. So that raised them from an F to a D because they do still have some pieces that I really like. I still like DJ Moore. I still like Brian Burns. It's nice seeing Steve Wilkes get an opportunity. It's nice seeing PJ Walker get an opportunity. Now they got slaughtered against Cincinnati. Now it's Cincinnati. I'm not going to hold that too much against them, but it did kind of kill the joy a little bit around this team. But yeah, man, this is a team that is tanking. They're going to be in the sweepstakes for a quarterback next year for sure. So, yeah, man, they're just sort of a team that's just not dead, but they're kind of dead for the most part. So, yeah, D on the year for the Panthers. And then we head to the final division that we're going to talk about, the NFC West, led by, and no, you are not mistaken, we did not do anything batshit weird. It is, in fact, the Seattle Seahawks, who are they are 6-3 at the moment. What an unbelievable season for the Seattle Seahawks. They get a B+ for me on the year. This team has been everything. I've said throughout this video, there are some teams that have outperformed expectations. I gave that title to the Giants. But realistically, it is the Seattle Seahawks that are the team that have outperformed expectations. This was a team that we thought was a surefire lock for the number 1 overall pick after trading Russell Wilson in the offseason. And they've been everything but, man. They've been easily the best and most consistent team in this division. And Geno Smith. Man, Geno Smith has been playing out of his mind. He looks like a legitimate, and not even just like, oh, he's playing good for Geno Smith. He's playing like a legit top 15 to top 10 quarterback in the NFL this year. And he has been absolutely incredible. It's been fun to watch. Kenneth Walker has been an animal. And also a couple rookies defensively. Tariq Woolen has been a huge find for them in the 6th round. Kobe Bryant has also made some plays for them. They got a really nice corner tandem developing there in Seattle. And yeah, man, this Seahawks team is just, everyone wrote them off. And like Geno Smith said after week 1, they wrote me off and they didn't write me back. You could say that not just for him, but you could say that for this entire team. 6-3, and yeah, man, B+ on the year for the Seattle Seahawks. Next up is the San Francisco 49ers, who are also going to get a B+ on the year. Now, they were a team that it felt like all hope was lost after Trey Lance got injured after the second game of the year. And Jimmy Garoppolo, who had a tumultuous offseason with this team, was now thrust back into the starting role for them. And, it looked like a team that was going to be fine. And they were just that. They were fine. They weren't able to get anything like consistently going as far as offensively, but defensively, they've been a shit-wrecking unit. And then that all kind of changed offensively when they traded for Christian McCaffrey. And I questioned the trade initially of how much of an impact he was going to be. And I said it kind of last week where Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers offense and a Kyle Shanahan offense just makes sense. When he's healthy, he is the ultimate weapon offensively. And he might be the thing that pushes this team over the top and makes a championship run potentially, because they have the defense to do it. They now have the offensive talent to do it. So it's going to be very interesting moving forward what this team can do. And then the Los Angeles Rams, your defending Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. But you would never know that watching this team this year. This has been a bad football team. Let's just cut straight to it. This has not been a good football team. They're going to get a D on the year. Defensively, they've not been as good as you would have hoped. Offensively, they've been worse than what you hoped. And I don't even think, even if they do bring back Odell Beckham, I don't think that he's going to make that much of a difference maker. Because this team, their offensive line has been terrible. Matthew Stafford hasn't looked that good. Their offense is basically Cooper Kupp and nothing else. Yeah, there's really nothing else to say about this team. It's just disappointing because you didn't expect this out of the defending Super Bowl champion. And they just look pedestrian at best and terrible at their worst. So D grade for the Los Angeles Rams. And then we're going to end off with the Arizona Cardinals, who they're going to get a D+, mainly just because it was another team that just sort of like at the beginning of the year, you knew kind of weren't going to go anywhere, and they've been exactly that. They're just a team that is just sort of Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, and not a whole lot else. It feels like the firing of Cliff Kingsbury that writing's been on the wall for about a year now, and if he doesn't get fired at the end of the year, I'll be stunned. I mean, I can't imagine why he wouldn't be. This team is just not very good right now, and it sucks because they have a lot of talent. It just seems like they don't know how to use it. So it's a team that just feels kind of stuck right now. So D+ for the Arizona Cardinals. And that is going to wrap it up. Those are my grades, my midseason grades of every NFL team through the first 9 weeks of the NFL season. I will be here. I'll be on Patreon, tomorrow for my Week 10 NFL picks. And I will also be back this upcoming Sunday for, it was originally... No, it is still Chargers-Niners. I was thinking until Week 11. That was the week that got flexed. But next week is going to be Chargers-Niners. Again, my apologies that I wasn't able to live stream on Wednesday. I wasn't feeling too well in the last minute. But I will be back here on YouTube for Chargers-Niners at 8:20. So I will be here for that. And I will also be back here the following Wednesday for the podcast, recapping some of the games from Week 10 of the NFL season. And then the cycle will continue. With that being said, I am Double Diesel. Peace.